getting on a couple minutes early, get acclimated. Woo. Just jamming to some tunes, getting revved up, getting ready for the PoP Baking Club Lemon Pound Cake Edition, which I'm super excited about. Oh my gosh, I've been working so hard this week on this recipe. I've made it twice in 2 different amounts, but I've made, hi mom, that's my mom, hi Patty. I've made it twice, but I put it in different pans, so we have a lot to talk about tonight. It's so good to see everybody. Hi Carl, I'm excited for some baking too because we are going to get to it immediately and I'm gonna do the whole run through and then we're gonna come back and talk about all the details that you guys have questions about because there are so many facets to this lemon poppy seed, from the pan that I use to the method, which is fascinating. The ingredients are fascinating. So there's a lot to talk about and I want to get right into the action. It's not quite 6 o'clock, so we'll wait a sec, but then I'm going to start mixing everything. I've already preheated my oven. My oven says 320. That's what gets me to 325, and I do not have a convection oven. Eating lemon poppy seed loaf right now. Hi. Has almond extract, which I didn't love. I've never done it with almond extract. I did it once with orange, and it was fine, but like I just love lemon. It's got such a nice pop. And I use lemon oil over the lemon extract. I was thinking about how much you teach me and how weird it is that we are able to teach each other. And so many of you have come into my DMs and my comment section and kind of helped me think about different things. So I have so much to add to this recipe. Hopefully you went to my link tree and printed out the recipe. This is what I've been doing this week, okay? I print the recipe out and then I use it actually to physically write notes because I really wanted to be able to keep track of the bake and let you guys know what's going on. I hope we have fun today. I struggle with the fact that when I'm baking, I'm very focused because I need to be so I don't make any mistakes, but then I feel like I'm missing you guys. So if I miss a question, just come back around, especially later, and I will make sure to answer that question. And if I miss any of your questions in general, you can always DM me, comment section, or I go over all of these sections when we are done. I wish you would post more written recipes online. You're incredible. Thank you. I print recipes that I know 1000% are going to work. I stand behind them all the way. I won't just throw up a recipe there, and most of the recipes that I do are my favorite recipes. So I'm sharing ones from others, ones I've developed, but I would love to do more, but I tend to like to put out the education with the recipe because like tonight's recipe, the lemon pound cake, we are doing a ribbon method and it's a little bit different. And there are a lot of nuances. So I don't want to leave you hanging. I don't just give recipes without support. So I am overwhelmed by everything that I'm having to do with the lives and everything. So I am trying to get caught up and I think I'm faster this week. There's my oven. That tells me it's on. I guarantee it's not up to temp because I know my oven, but I have an oven thermometer in there. Okay. Thank you for liking my turtleneck because it is the last month I consider to be winter. It is March and it's St. Patrick's Day, one of my favorite holidays, okay? I found out that I'm like mostly Scottish and Irish, and I bought this turtleneck on J.Crew for like $7.99 and it came with this, which is great because I can push my hair back. I can push my hair back and work really clean. And this was like $2. So they go together. I wear green the entire month of March and I just love it. So I might wear that while I'm working, but it's a little juvenile and I don't know, kind of dorky. So yes, thank you, Eli. It was super fun to have you and 100% my pleasure. Eli joined me last Sunday and we chatted and he's been here since the beginning of when I started here on TikTok. So I love that because I've actually gotten familiar with a lot of you. And you're all so lovely. I mean, I have the most amazing group of people that follow me, and I call it my compliment section because people are just so nice. I don't even know how to respond anymore except thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Dorky is good, Dave. My husband likes dorks, and that's good because I like him too, and I think he's a dork as well. Your mom's birthday is on St. Patrick's Day. Well, my mom is on here right now and her birthday is coming up. It's not on St. Patrick's Day, but it's very close. And so, I don't know, I've always liked March. It's going to be daylight saving next weekend, or no, yeah, this coming weekend, which means that these lives might be in the daylight, which would be great. I love it when we get more daylight. I just hate when it's dark, and for us afflicted by daylight saving, fall's bad enough, but I love spring forward. Thank you. You love the green. I love green. It's my favorite color. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Baking is not something that I think about the way that I look. I want to be comfortable, and it's cold out, so this is what I'm wearing. How did you learn to articulate yourself in the way that you do? Very admirable. Thank you so much. I don't know. I am actually not. One of the reasons I didn't get on lives for so long is I was scared to death my TMI was gonna rear its ugly head. And Brian, you need my skin routine. You're always glowing. Thank you. I have not, my face has not seen the sun since I was 20 or 21 years old. I wear sunblock obsessively and I stay out of the sun. I also use prescription strength retin-A, and I have since I was 21. And I don't think that the stuff you get at the drugstore comes even close. If you ask a dermatologist, they'll tell you. But it has a lot of caveats and it's a pain to use and you get a lot of flaking and irritation. So I also started using an oil because my skin's so dry in the wintertime. But thank you. It's not perfect, but I'm 56 and I'm fighting the fight, you know, but sunblock really helps. Your live sessions feel so sincere and like we're FaceTiming. I'm so glad because I find watching other people's makes me feel like a voyeur, like I'm being rude and like peeking into their life. But honestly, that's what you guys are doing. This is where I spend a lot of time. A lot of time. I work out of this kitchen. I adore it over here. You know, if my husband Dave has a cold or something, I might stay over here and sleep. I mean, it's my safe place and we live right there. I can see our apartment. It's right on the area, on the land that we live on and we rent. So it just couldn't be any better. Have you ever felt neurospicy because of your deep passion and knowledge of recipes and baking? Yes, a lot of people have said that they think that I am neurodivergent. I have not been tested. It doesn't, whatever is weird about me, and there are a lot of things from my hypersensitive smell, hearing, I feel like, you know how beavers have this natural urge to move things and to stop flowing water? I have a natural urge to organize and everything, and it doesn't overtake me or prevent me from being productive, so I don't get it tested. I leave it alone, and I consider it a superpower. So yes, I am neurospicy, and as I get older, it becomes easier to deal with because my brain is definitely calming down. The box Ghirardelli. So I have a brownie extravaganza that is on my brownie playlist on my profile page. Go check it out because there's a lot. I've done over 20 plus gluten-free and vegan plus boxes, a lot. There's a lot. So yes, I've tried it. All right, well, I think we should get started. I could stay here forever, but receiving your compliments. I mean, who wouldn't? But here's what we're doing. This is the PoP Baking Club, which you guys all developed because I just came on to talk about baking and you said, let's do a baking club. So now we pick a recipe, and on Sunday I did a poll and you guys all pick lemon pound cake. So we choose on Sundays what recipes we're doing, and this Sunday I will do another poll and then you will pick next week's recipe. So on Sunday I had a live and thank you. I had a live and wrapped up last week's recipe. We picked lemon pound cake. I worked on the recipe, looked at the numbers, and then I posted it on my Linktree on Monday. Meanwhile, I have a Wednesday live right now where I lecture the recipe and then I demo, just like when I taught professionally at the college level. It is exactly the same process. I tell you what the ideal outcome is, what the recipe is, how the ingredients function, and then I demonstrate it, and then you go and make it if you so choose. Then on Sunday, you come back and you can ask questions, you can troubleshoot, and then this week I'm going to be adding some experiments with flour. I want to show you the difference between cake flour and pastry flour and bread flour, and do a few things that you can see make it kind of exciting. So I have all kinds of ideas for Sunday, so we'll make that kind of fun, and then you guys get to choose the next week's recipe. The PoP stands for the practice of pastry, and that means that everything you are doing is in the service of getting and building a practice of doing things well and right so that you have a better outcome and you're building skills slowly. Like any kind of practice, you do a little bit at a time and over time you will get better. So that's what we're gonna do. I finally received my pastry flour and new pans for the bounties and have chocolate chip cookie dough in my fridge. I'll tell you what, I have some frozen dough, but I love having dough around because just now, like, I don't think I've had a sweet today, so I might have a cookie tonight. Blondies. One of the viewers, Drew, was DMing me today about the blondie, and he turned it into a biscotti. So, like, I might have to test that. That sounds really cool. I think he baked it, cut it up, and then laid it flat and baked it some more till it dried out. I mean, a blondie biscotti. Delish. This shirt is from J. Crew, and my headband is also from J. Crew, but look how little it is. I have a really little head. And it's for kids. But I was like, they made the shirt for women and then they made the headband for kids. I'm in. So I like my hair to be back when I work, and I'm gonna get going. So J. Crew, I always look and see if they have novelty items that are cheap. Maybe these will keep my glasses on. I have never had to work publicly because when COVID hit, I was not wearing reading glasses yet. And these are progressive, so I'm gonna have to get contacts or something. You've made the chocolate chip cookie 4 times this week, and it's so good. Well, you know what? That is not my recipe. I didn't make it. It came from an amazing bakery, and it's been made lots, thousands of times, and it is a really good recipe. I love it. Could you imagine blondie croutons on top of an ice cream? I like how you guys think. Love. My recipes live on my link tree, and this lemon pound cake is on the link tree under the PoP Baking Club lemon pound cake. That is this specific recipe, and there are 2 versions of it. So there is a 4-cup version and a 6-cup version, and tonight I'm doing the 4-cup version because of the pan that I'm putting it in. It's a smaller pan, and because of you guys, I went shopping, so I got the Duet Nordic Bundt pan. And I'm going to show you the different variations of pans that we can use, but that's what I'm going to use. The chocolate chip cookie recipe is on my link tree, and we did it 2 weeks ago. So this is the 3rd week of the baking club. First week was a chocolate chip cookie. Second week was a blondie, and this week is lemon pound cake. And every single one of these lives lives on YouTube, edited and ready for you to catch up. So if you missed these lives ever, all you have to do is go to YouTube and you're caught right back up. You go to Linktree, print out the recipe, watch the YouTubes. Part 1 is Wednesday, part 2 are Sundays. So I'm live twice a week. I'm on repeat on YouTube, and on my Substack, I post an ingredient function chart. And in here, it's the same as the recipe, only it breaks down all of the ingredients and their functions. And look how many functions there are. You know, butter does a lot of things. And so when we are here, we are looking at how do the ingredients function. We think like an ingredient, and we do that once we know what lives inside the ingredient. So for instance, butter has water, protein, and sugars. And that is going to act different in the chocolate chip cookie than it is in the lemon cake. So we're gonna start it now. Yeah, the YouTube videos are great. I really am gonna try hard to keep these lives to 2 hours so that I can edit those more quickly, because I haven't really been adding other videos and I wanna get back to baking. B. Blevins gave me a vegan blueberry muffin recipe that I'm working on, and it has some unusual ingredients, so I've been having to order them and collect them, like blueberry extract, which I've never used. So, Jasper, you trust me with your life. Thank you. I would like to be trustworthy, and that's why I hope that the recipes all work for you in your kitchen, and I'm dedicated to making that work. All right, so I'm gonna move some things around, wash my hands, get my apron on, and then we are going to put this together. And while it's baking, I'm going to talk about all the details. And I love answering all your questions, but if we can keep some of them on tonight's recipe, that will help me cover all of the subjects that you guys might have questions about. Lemon pound cake should be, the ideal pound cake Should have a nice golden exterior, a sort of yellow, yummy, delicious color on the interior, a tender crumb. Might be a little bit dense, but not a lot, but just a little bit because the bubbles are all very small. But it won't have a coarse grain, and it will have a very rich, buttery flavor that's sweet. Now we are adding lemon zest to this pound cake to turn it into a lemon pound cake. And lemon zest gets more intense as the cake sits once we've glazed it and it's been sitting on my countertop wrapped up for 2, maximum of 3 days. Other flavors meld and mellow. The egginess of the pound cake dissipates a little bit, and then that lemon sort of peaks and improves. And then boom, you eat your cake and you've got a delicious lemon poppy seed cake that's sturdy. You can add chantilly cream to it. It can be turned into sandwiches and components to plated desserts. There are a lot of things you can do with it. And on Sunday, I'm going to take the pound cake and wrap it, package it, and show you some of those things. But tonight, I'm not going to show you any makeups. I'm not going to show you how to plate it or gift it. But a pound cake can be made in any shape or size. So that makes it infinitely beautiful, giftable, and in production, you can take this recipe that I've given you and you can scale it way up. And there are lots of little tips that I can give you so that you can make this. And if you have a coffee shop or a business, you can sell slices, you can sell mini loaves, and there's just a lot of options. So that's what we're going to focus on. All right, the reason there's no lemon juice is because the lemon juice is going to go into the simple syrup, which is the glaze for it, but also the moisture content is perfect. And so zest keeps that moisture content down. Yes, you can make cupcakes with pound cake. You can make literally any size or shape with this pound cake. However, I have a few caveats that we'll talk about as I go along. So Olive Gum says, why is it called pound cake? Thank you. It's called pound cake because it's used to be 4/4, which is like 4/4. It was equal amounts butter, sugar, egg, and flour. So you would do like a pound of each. That was like the simple recipe. And a long time ago, when we're talking in the 1800s, somebody would have to manually whip the butter. It could take over an hour to make this. They would have to manually whip it, and there were no leaveners. Leaveners were more like baking powder was invented in the late 1800s, and it became more readily available in like 1880 and beyond. And the man who developed it did it because his wife was allergic to eggs and yeast, which I just think is adorable. And so it means an equal amount of 4 ingredients. It's very basic, but we are adding baking powder to this recipe because we need it to lighten. We're gonna make a ribbon egg because the process of combining the sucrose and the eggs gives us air, and that's leavening. And then we're going to add the fat, the cream, the flours, baking powder, and the zest. So I'm gonna set up so that we can get working and you will be able to see me. All right, this is where I work every day. You have been inspiring a younger person into baking. I hope you know the impact you have. Well, I don't, so I appreciate you saying that, Mara, I really do. Baking is wonderful. It is good for the soul. It can teach you so many things, and it is a satisfying, meaningful pursuit. It's something you can do, obviously, to bring people together, and I love it. So I'm gonna get my hands washed and my apron on. Yeah, it's just such the worst. I wish I had like a camera that I could figure out. All right, let me get hands washed, get my clean apron on. I saw a guy yesterday on the street coming out of a restaurant, going to his car in an apron. So you really need to wear your apron only when you're working and not take it into the bathroom or outside, or if you're doing garbage, you need to take your apron off and keep it sanitary. And that is what I do. My countertop has been sanitized. All my tools are clean and sanitary. And this apartment's old, so I don't have a lot of electrical outlets. And it's kind of dangerous, but I plug it in over here. All right. I wish you could see everything all the way to the side, but okay. So I'm going to show you what I've got here. It's my recipe, and I like to put all the ingredients that are going to be added together in groups. So when you read this recipe and you see it on my link tree, we are going for this center column. And when I say I'm doing the 4-cup one, we are doing 100% of this recipe, which equals around 950 grams, right down the middle. So when you look at an ingredient, that's the amount we're doing. Now I put this in a sleeve so it stays clean, and then I look at my ingredients, which are right here, and these are all in deli cups that I already scaled out, and I scaled these 2 days ago, and then I didn't have cake flour. So I ran to the store and got cake flour, and then I realized I'm going to need to sift it twice and line my pan. So this is the container with the amount, so I can do this while I'm working. And my eggs, I scaled 2 days ago, and they've been in the refrigerator. Okay, and my butter's room temp, and everything's room temperature. So according to my recipe, I need 216 grams of eggs, 279 grams of sucrose, and I am checking my recipe and my scalings because that way I know I won't make any mistakes. It's a great system. And then sea salt. Okay. These 3 things are actually going in the bowl together, so I'm already putting them together. And then cake flour, I'm just going to put the empty container here, and that's going to have baking powder because those are going to get sifted twice. And melted butter, which is not melted butter yet, but here's the butter at 126 grams. And then 126 grams of cream. And there's my cake flour. Oh, I have 2 of them. Okay, I did it twice. And then these are my lemons that are going to be zested. And I like to put them in here because then I know that they aren't in the refrigerator getting used accidentally. Okay. So we are doing the lemon pound cake, and a lemon pound cake is very traditional. And there are many different kinds of mixing methods. You can do the creaming method, which is solid, room temperature butter with sucrose. Reverse creaming method, which is adding your fats to the flour to coat the flour to keep it tender, which I think gives you too coarse of a crumb. And there's the method we are going to be doing, which is to take our eggs, room temperature, our sea salt, and our sucrose, whip it on this whip attachment until it is light in color, and when drizzled, the ribbons that stay sort of on top of the batter last a few seconds. And then when they slowly dissipate, you're ready. You don't want to overdo it or underdo it. It's our leavening. Then we are going to add dries, melted butter, cream. These both are fat and have water in them. And then the lemon zest, we are going to zest directly on the cake flour. I don't want to add lemon zest to the first ribbon eggs because the zest will irritate the proteins in the eggs, just like if you were to add lemon to tea with cream in it, you get a curdling. Those are pre-coagulating the proteins, so we're not going to do that. It goes in the flour. And this is a beautiful recipe. You guys are going to love it. Sucrose is granulated sugar, table sugar, and I call it that to keep things simple. Okay, so I take all of my labels, which have the amount for the recipe, 126 grams butter. All the butter I use is unsalted in my kitchen to keep it simple. Lemon pound cake, and then the date that I scaled this so that I don't forget. Because sometimes I have 5 or 6 recipes scaled, and I take this off and I put it on the counter. Okay, I take the lid off, and this is going to go in the microwave for about 30 seconds. The lid is not tight. It's just meant to keep my microwave clean and from the butter splashing. Yes, I use sea salt, but you may use kosher salt, and diamond is great, but you have to do it by weight. And when you do these small amounts, you need a mini scale, and that is on my link tree if you're interested. Now these deli cups are cold deli cups, so the kind that you get maybe in the cold section where you buy like a cold salad. They're not meant for hot soup and hot things like that. If you look in the back here, I have my deli cups. Those are 3 sizes in the lids, and they take up no space. Next to them, I have my blue tape, and I have one of my scales. So I'm going to take the tape off of the first 3 ingredients that I want to go into the bowl, into the mixer bowl. Let me check the butter. And one of the reasons that I don't worry about this being too hot or the plastic is because there are chunks in here, but when you warm butter, you don't need to cook it. You don't want to cook any water out of it, and you certainly don't need to get it really hot. So those chunks, I'm just going to stir, and I'm going to leave this. But my kitchen is cold, and I talk about this a lot. So this is an IKEA cork. It's for cups, but I'm just going to put this on my counter, or else this butter is so temperature sensitive, it's going to solidify. So I'm going to put the butter here out of the way on the cork, which is an insulator. And then I'm going to take the lids off of my sucrose, salt, and egg. Get rid of the lids over here. I wanted to show you how I collect my tools. Okay, these are the tools that I'm going to use tonight. And when I have them nearby, it just makes my life a lot easier. This is my sifter. It's a sieve, and you can use a bunch of different kinds. And this is the serrated knife that I'm going to be using to cut the samples. I have my spatulas, mini spatulas, and then I have 3 different pastry brushes. One is going to be to do the pans. The other is going to be to do a butter stripe on top of the pound cake before it goes in the oven. The last one is for the simple syrup, the lemon simple syrup that is going to coat the entire pound cake while it's warm out of the oven. I have a zester, and I'm going to show you a production method for putting that butter on that's a little bit different. So I have a little pastry bag. So these are my tools, and they're going to live right here to make my life a little bit easier. Is sucrose the same as white sugar? Yes. Yes. So when I work, one of the reasons I walk over with my ingredients like this is because I can take a look at them physically. When I work, I want to eliminate all of the distractions. So this physical situation I've got going here is perfect because look, the eggs go here with the sucrose. I'm going to go ahead and put the salt in there. And these are over here. So physically, I know those go there. Physically, I know the fats are here, the lemon's there, and physically this is, like I know, and that's because of this. So grabbing the tools is also smart. If you're in the middle of something time sensitive and you have to stop and wash something or look for it or you don't have it, and that goes with, ingredients. That's why I scale in advance. It just helps a lot. I do not use silicone, and I'm going to get started on my pan so when I can talk about it. 2 seconds. Okay. So I use this pan for my sample, and honestly, I feel terrible. I don't think you can get it online. It's by Motfer. It's beautiful. Look at the end. It's been folded like an envelope and welded. It's gorge. It's Motfer. It's a 250 by 80 pan. You see how narrow it is? I like a pound cake that has a nice square narrowness and height. I tested a few that were like loaf pans, and the wideness of it I didn't love how it ended up. So if you can get loaf pans that are narrow, more narrow than tall, this is lovely. And many of you asked about bundt cakes, and the only bundt cakes that I have are gigantic. They're 10 cups. And I wanted to do something pretty, so I bought myself something. This is a Nordic Ware, the brand Nordic Ware from Minnesota. And I didn't want to buy it sincerely because it has a silicone coating that's non-stick, and I don't like non-stick. But here's why I went ahead and bought it. It's not dark in the inside, which is why I don't like non-stick most of the time, because really dark pans darken the crust too much, and I want it more of an even bake. Also though, this is so heavy. It's a really nice aluminum that's really, really heavy, and I think is going to give me a really nice bake all the way through. So I'll get like a nice dark crust, but it won't go so fast. It's heavy and it's thick. So I'm going to take soft butter. This soft butter has been sitting out, and I'm going to use a pastry brush. And I separate out my pastry brushes. I wash them and then I wrap them with a sanitary paper towel, and the paper towel does a couple things. You see how this says fat on there, and I know it's backwards. It says fat, and I'm gonna pull this off. Mine are all natural brushes. You see this? I'm telling you, this brush is 10 years old. I take impeccable care of my tools. Very soft. What I like about adding fat or butter when you're doing a pan is this is wide, okay? I also have this one though. This one's a little narrower, and it's also natural. It's very soft. This is the one that I use for washing with the simple syrup, but it's very wide, but I don't use it for fat. The way that I wash these, and I have videos under cleaning and organizing on my playlist, is to rinse it well and then put Dawn in the sink or on the countertop and to go back and forth like this and to scrub them, wash it gently, rinse it, and then I put it on the countertop with the paper towel and I organize the bristles so that when I wrap it and then fold it and let it stay, it dries and they stay in shape and just gorgeous. So this is why I don't really want to use a really wide one, because look at these narrow, all this detail, right? So I'm going to do two things, and this is kind of fun. I'm going to use a brush, and I still think this is too big for here. And if you guys ever want a stage, this is a job that they give you. I love it. If they give me 50 little mini pans and some soft butter and a brush, I'm psyched, because I'll just sit there and do it, listening and taking it all in. But because I've got little nooks and crannies in a small area, I'm going to use the smaller brush because that makes sense. Okay. I like to keep one pull off on my deli cups. It keeps them clean. What kind of cloth do you use? I'm just using a clean paper towel. So I'm going to take a little bit of butter and I'm going to kind of spread it around. But then I'm going to, and you don't want to ruin your brushes and really go in there and do that. So you want to be aware that your brushes, you know, you want them to last a long time. So it doesn't matter if it's kind of thick in places because we can pull it off. But you really want this to be evenly applied. So I think this is going to be kind of hard to do, and you do not want to melt your butter. It breaks the emulsion and it just doesn't make it non-stick the way that it should. So I think what I'm going to do is put more on here than I need. And I want to get all the way to the edge, because imagine that batter getting stuck in some of these little beautiful nooks and crannies. And you want them to be coated in the butter so that they release really nicely. The whole point of a bundt pan is the center helps you bake it evenly. It's like a heat cone, but also it makes it beautiful. So I'm just gonna get in here, and these are the kind of things that I really like, the little details that I find to be, and you want to turn it and look in the light, and that's kind of what I'm looking at. And if you've ever painted a wall or molding or furniture, you know that a thin, thorough, even layer where you don't miss any spots is better than thick, drippy, right? So we want it to be nice and even and not miss a spot. And it's okay if it goes up around the edge. But I don't want to make a mess. Okay, so then on the other one, I'm going to use Pam baking spray, and we're just going to do a comparison. I used it. It works fine. This is just if you want to be a little bit more detailed, which sometimes is fun. And I've worked and staged at plenty of places that do this. They literally butter and flour everything. So it all, you know, it gets done. It's not like people don't do it and I'm making something up. So when I say I use one side, I just try to do a pull off here. I don't do it all over. The thing doesn't get messy. I'm gonna clean it up, and then I'm gonna show you the magic of what I do with the cake flour. Unsalted room temperature butter, easiest thing ever. Okay, so I'm just gonna set this aside for now and clean it up later. And then I'm going to get the egg going. Does the butter and Pam make a difference in the end color? I don't know, we'll see. I don't think so, that's not the experience I had, but we will see. Okay, so I'll get a spatula, and I'm gonna put the room temperature eggs into the mixer bowl. In the eggs it's a whole egg. So you have, in the white, you have water and you have protein. In the yolk, you have fat and lecithin. Lecithin is a natural emulsifier, and emulsifiers make things that don't like each other go together. So I'm gonna get this started, and nothing I do is on fast or high. Everything I do is always on medium because you want to build stable bubbles. A lot of times people think if you put it on high, you're going to get it to where you want it to be, and it's real quick and it's satisfying. But then the bubbles have not been allowed to develop slowly, so then they kind of dissipate and fall apart. You need to build a strong emulsion, strong bubbles that really hold up. You can use a paintbrush instead of a pastry brush, but it should be a natural material and it should be only for food, obviously. Keep it separate. And if it's got, I'll show you, I have other things. These are my other brushes. So this little guy is great if you're drizzling things and basting, but not if you're doing egg washes. The silicone guy is really nice because these are very sanitary, easy to clean in a commercial environment, and they're nice. I just like the natural ones. And so then I have other ones that are different shapes. I could have used this for the pan. It's narrow and kind of nice. But there are lots of options. I've even seen pastry chefs use makeup brushes. Yes, I make a butter and flour mixture. I have a video on it, but we are going to add the flour to this, and then I guess we'll compare. I'm going to start adding the sucrose and salt are in here, and I'm going to just add about 1/3 of it. We're going to add it slowly so that it can catch up to each other. I'm going to use the parchment paper and my sifter, and we are going to sift this twice. So I'm going to take the labels so that I know that I used them. This is my signal that I used them. And, I need to get my, here we go, sorry. I'm losing track of myself. Add a little bit more sugar because I don't want to go on too long. But I'm going to take a little bit of cake flour. I'm going to put it into the cake pan. And then sprinkle it around, coating the pan just like you do. Tap it out, and that's what it looks like, but it's kind of clumpy, so I'm going to gently tap a little bit more, and it's ready to go. The other one I will spray with baking spray by Pam. Okay, so I'm going to put this over here, and then I'm going to add the rest of the sucrose and salt mixture. So now what I have is this leftover cake flour that was in the pan, but it's touched butter, so I want to separate it out. This is my scale. I'm going to put the scale right here. I'm going to put the container on the scale. It's 0 grams. I need 198. So I'm going to take the flour that I have butter kind of cross-contaminated, put it in there, and then I'm going to add more flour until I get to 198. I'm going to turn this up and then I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. 198 grams of cake flour. I will tell you from personal experience, this recipe needs to be scaled very accurately, especially the baking powder. 198. All right, there we go. Okay, 198. Losing my mind. All right, so now I'm going to sift it. Woo! My sea salt is fine, and if you use kosher, you know, it's not going to fit through the sieve, but that's okay. You can just add it last. We are going to sift the cake flour twice. Cake flour is lower protein. This is King Arthur 9.4% protein. And the reason that's important is because we picked it specifically. This is going to go back into my little deli cup, and then I'm going to sift it a second time. So there are a lot of different cake flours on the market, and I did a lot of research on soft as silk and even all-purpose lily white flour, and some are bleached, some are unbleached, and I chose King Arthur, and so we'll see what the results are. If you want to try a different flour, you can compare your results to my results. Yeah, it is a little higher protein, especially than even the pastry flour we use. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. And I don't know if you can see, but on the edge, there are grains of sucrose. So I'm going to take the whip attachment and scrape it in. I could use a spatula, but I like to feel this. And when I lift it, it's very runny. So you can see when it's in the bowl, it runs right back in, okay? Now it's very important that my ingredients are room temp. Now my bowl is kind of cold, but in order to create the air holes, the air cells, I need to get the sugar, sucrose, dissolving a little bit into the water, creating a syrup. And as my air bubbles start to connect with the proteins in the eggs, it creates like a bubble of viscous syrup that will hold air as it goes in the oven, and CO2 is expressed during the baking process. Okay. So I'm going to turn that down, because if you want to slow things down, you can just turn it down. I'm getting my fats ready, which are my butter and my cream. This is the lemon pound cake. Lemon pound cake with lemon zest. And I'm going to zest directly into the flour. Now, there are a few different ways you can add lemon zest to your baking, into the sugar or into the ingredients. I like to add it to the fat, but in this case we are going to add it to the flour. And you never want to zest into a bowl. All those beautiful essential oils are going to stick to the bowl. We can't rub the zest into the sugar because the sugar is in with the eggs. And the zest is acidic and it will pre-coagulate the eggs. So that's why in this case, and not in all cases, it is going into the flour. Now I'm going to turn that down because it's getting close. When you zest, you do not take this and start doing this. This is my dominant hand. I am right-handed. People who do this are automatically, no matter how careful they think they're being, they're getting into the pit. So it is always imperative that you flip it to your non-dominant hand, and this becomes your control. And you want to slide it back and forth very gently. I lift and slide to the point where all you're doing is getting the lemon part off. It still looks lemony, it does not get white, and you're really just taking the zest off. And it's collecting in my zester, and I'm going to do 1.5 lemons, which is what my tape said. So I know not to do more than that, and this is somewhat of an estimate. So when a recipe says like give a certain amount of grams of lemon zest, I don't agree with that, because how are you going to measure that? If you put it into a deli cup or a bowl, you're going to lose way more than I want to lose. Now if you're ever needing lemon juice and lemon zest, just remember to zest first. Don't go to town getting your juice. Make sure you get your zest. So this is how much zest that I got from a whole lemon, and then I'm going to do half, and it smells lovely. Now again, I'm not going back and forth and going nuts. I am literally going in one direction, and I'm being very careful. Just a little attention, and it's going to go in very soon, so I know I'm not going to lose a lot of the oils. I'm going to do about 1.5. We do not add lemon juice to this recipe because I don't want the liquid. It'll throw off my formula. So I'm going to take this and put it into the flour, and I'm going to gently tap with a nice rubber spatula. When people bang on their zesters, when they lean them on bowls and really go to town, they end up being bent and they'll come out of the handle. So I've had this one for a long time. To get the zest out of here, I just drag it through the flour a little bit and it kind of grabs on. And I find that a good way to remove all of the zest and to grab the oils. So there are recipes that you do this in the sugar, and there are recipes you do it in the fat. And then the fat's my favorite, but that won't work in this case. I think I could zest into the fat of the melted butter, but in this case I'm not going to. Okay, so I'm moving these over here, because I know I'm going to be using them, and I'm going to take a look at this. And then it's go time because I can go ahead and move forward. I've got my flour sifted and I've got my pan ready. All right, so you can still see that there are some edges here that need to be moved in. So I'm just going to take this and clean it up just a little bit. And it is a little thicker, a little lighter, but obviously it's still disappearing very quickly. It's still very light. So now that I'm on task and I'm paying attention, I need to bring this to ribbon stage, which means when I drizzle it like that, they stay on top for just a second. If you rub the lemon into the sugar, you're not necessarily going to get a stronger flavor than I'm going to get. You want to dissipate it in general, and adding it to the sugar is fine, but your best dispersion of citrus is actually in the fat, which is a conduit for flavor. And the fat with the essential oils, which is like fat, really work well together. It's the best. And then, you know, and again, we're paying attention to the eggs though. Why do you begin with eggs and sugar instead of butter and sugar? Butter and sugar is the creaming method. This is the ribbon method. So there are a lot of recipes out there that you can make with the creaming method, and you're just going to get a coarser crumb. When I cut this, after this goes in the oven, I'm going to take my samples and cut them and show you what the crumb looks like. This is a very delicate, very elegant pound cake. And it's a matter of preference, and I'll eat either, I don't care. But I think showing the ribbon method is really nice because it's a precursor to a pâte à bombe, which is when you cook the eggs a little bit, like in a Swiss meringue, and then you add the cooked sugar to the eggs, so that cooks them while you're whipping them. And that's why warm and the temperature of the eggs is important, because the proteins in the eggs need to stretch, and they're going to stretch if they're warm, just like your muscles, which are protein, are going to stretch. All right, so it's looking a lot lighter. I just want to clean it up here. Some of this I have to pay attention to. Like the bowl, the ingredients don't care that I'm teaching or that I'm doing something else. They want me to pay attention to them because their needs are always going to win. And I don't want to waste all this time and energy to have... Can you see that there are ribbons there? I don't know if you guys can see this. They're disappearing relatively quick. However, it's growing in volume and it's getting a little bit lighter, but it's not ready yet. Medium. All right, so I'm going to pull up all my stickers because I know I have all of the ingredients. Thank you. I study up a lot. I know a lot about all these things that I make, but before I come and talk to you, I research more so I can really get it in my head. Can you make the simple syrup the night before? Absolutely. Mine is in the refrigerator, and I recommend storing it in the refrigerator because we want it to be cold, because we are going to add the cold simple syrup. We're going to brush it on a warm cake. That is how we're going to get a really good seal. How long would you say you mix the eggs and sugar? I don't know. You've been watching. I don't. It's frustrating to people because when something goes in the oven and the timer's on, I literally don't know how much. I use a timer to remind myself that something's in the oven, but I'm watching it and I'm watching this. So I lose track of time. But this could take 20 minutes, I guess. It depends. It doesn't. I think my video the other day that I made, because I made it twice, it took maybe 10 minutes. So here it is. You can see it's getting lighter. It's beautiful. And the ribbon, all right, there you go. See how it's still running right into the batter? It's not sitting on top, so we're going to keep going. But it's getting a lot lighter. Pâte à bombes are great because once you make them, you can just fold other things into them. You get whole new desserts. My simple syrup recipe is half and half. Water to sugar, sucrose. But I am using half lemon to sucrose. And a viewer suggested that I add bitters. And I'm going to be adding some bitters, so I'll show you what I do. So my simple syrup is very lemony. Would adding lemon essential oil change the reaction of the recipe. It's going to change it, definitely. This recipe is formulated for the zest. If you want to try it with oil, I would weigh it out, and I would start small with 1%, which is about what the zest is, and then I would compare. But I like lemon oil way better than extracts. Okay, so it's getting very light. And I do this. Okay, this is better. Oh, no. Okay, here we go. When I do this, you can see the ribbon rest on top, and it is almost there. It dissipates. I'm just gonna give it like 1 more minute. And I am gonna hold the bowl here. Just another 30 seconds, and then I'll check it, and then we're going to move to the next stage. So you can make pound cake a lot of different ways by adding lemon oil, lemon juice, whatever. But when you choose a method and a recipe, you want to stick with it and make sure. I want to keep going. I don't want this to lose structure. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to put this phone, I'll wash my hands. And then I'm going to begin to add the fats, which are the butter, which is still melted, and the cream. And we are going to use melted butter to paint onto the top center of the cake so that it gets a really nice split. So I'm going to put this in the microwave for just a second. Someone asked about microplastics. Yes, I'm concerned about microplastics. Everything, my yoga clothes are made out of plastic. The blanket I sleep in at night is made out of plastic. But I'm just going to do this until it's melted. I am not going to heat it in any way. I'm just going to melt it out. Which is about 11 seconds. All right, let me take a look here. Look how light that is. All right, let's see. I think it's perfect. You can see the ribbons stay on the surface. I know what I need to do. They don't dissipate right away. Perfect. Okay, I'm adding half the butter and half the cream on low, like this. And then, just when it starts to get mixed, on low, I'm going to add half the flour. Then I'm going to add the other fat, like that, but I'm going to stop the mixer and clean it up a bit, and I'm going to scrape the egg and the butter, I'm going to scrape the butter and the whipping cream in while it's not mixing. I want to feel the bottom. All of this is to keep it moving without overworking it, and I'm looking, smelling, touching, and using my observation to see how it's all going in the bowl. So this is going to go into the bowl. Cream, there's a lot of fat. Look at the fat stuck. So you want to make sure to get all of the cream, because cream is made up of water and fat and other things, just like the butter is made up of more than one thing. Feels like a whole ingredient, but it's really not. So I'm going to take this, and I just want to scrape the sides to keep it nice and clean, and also to make sure that things are moving along. Okay, so it looks good. I don't want to overmix it. Oops. Well, you might as well see how I pick up flour when it gets on the table. I take 2 of these King Arthur scrapers, and I lift the flour so I don't lose any. That's how I never lose any flour. Okay, so then this is going to go in here. And then I am going to take, I'm just going to turn that off. I'm going to take a pastry bag and my softened butter, and I'm going to show you 2 ways to do the butter. So if you have a production kitchen or you need to make a lot of cakes, This is how you do it. You put this softened butter into a pastry bag. And cut off the end, which now becomes a food safety hazard, so make sure to throw it away. And if you are here, we're doing a lemon pound cake. And if I'm losing you because I'm doing this stuff, I promise you, as soon as this goes in the oven, I'm going to answer all your questions. Yes, this I use because I'm going to be adding right now. See, I put this in for 10 seconds and it's slightly solid, but it's also liquid. And I'm going to be painting this on the cake. It's going to go there. And then this is my butter that I'm going to pipe a line, which will give me that beautiful crack in the surface of the cake. Okay. So right now I added the last bit of flour and you can see it's all around the edges. So I don't want to overmix this. So the key is as soon as it's combined, you are done. So I'm going to scrape the bottom gently, make sure there are no, dried bits or anything stuck to the edge of the bowl. And then I'm going to mix it just a little more and it is going in my pans and it's going in the oven. I can already smell the lemon. It smells great. But when you are mixing, you are looking for lightness and cohesion, and that's what we're doing. Okay, that's enough. You stir it and make sure we're good. All right, I think it looks really nice. Clean this off. Into the sink. Okay. I'm going to take the PAM, which is a baking spray. I like Baker's Joy, but I can't find it anywhere. And you want to pulse. You don't want like big clumps, but you definitely want to get every bit. And this has some really sharp edges. I just love the design. So one side is the flour butter mixture and the other's the spray. Now the spray has propellants in it and sort of chemicals and stuff. So if you want to be a purist, that's the one to do. Put this here, take my cake off of here, unplug and get this out of here. I will wipe it down later. All right, so I'm a little nervous because you have to shoot for it right in the pan. It has to go in between and I want to keep it clean. So I am going to use my little paintbrush for the melted butter, and I'm going to use the pastry bag for the other one. Yes, this is slightly solid just because I didn't beat it in the microwave. Okay, so you could scoop it if you wanted to using a scooper, but I'm going to pour as carefully as I can. I'm going to make sure that I have some nice mixture here. All right, this is 5 cups and this is 4 cups, but I have way more batter than I need. So I should be weighing these, but I'm not going to right now. All right, so let's see. You always want to fill your pound cake pan 75% of the way. So even if you end up not using all of your batter, don't use all your batter. Just leave the batter then, because you want to get the right rise. You don't want to have it get to the top and then not have anywhere to hang on to and collapse. So I want to go to about 75%. So I'm going to eyeball it. Now if I were to do this again and use the pan again, I would adjust my recipe. And because my recipe is in grams, it's very easy to do. Okay, let's see. I think that's good. And then a little more in here. This is going all right. Going a little slower than I normally would. I like to keep it moving. Baking powder begins to react to the moisture as soon as the moisture hits it. And then, oh, just so you know, this is how much batter is left in here. So it's a bit. I could put it in a mini loaf pan, but I'm going to keep it simple tonight. And then once this has been in the oven for a little while and it gets to around 140 degrees internally, it's going to have a second reaction from the baking powder. And that second reaction is going to help leaven it and lighten it because this is a lot of batter. So I'm going to take some butter and I'm going to make a line in a circle. And this is just going to help open it up, hopefully. Right down the middle in a circle, not too much. There we go. And then if I had a shop and I needed it to be fast, I would just take this pastry bag with softened butter and I would make a nice circle. Boom, done. Couldn't be easier. Okay? Okay, so this is going in an oven that I have set. The Nordic Ware said to do this to get some bubbles out, but I'm not into that. So I'm gonna go put this in the oven. 20 minutes at 320 in my oven. Do a couple things with some tools and the cakes. All right. Oops, gotta take off my apron. Fold it up and put it away in the drawer. Every time. Build good habits, you'll have better baked goods, right? Woo! Okay. Okay. So if you have this, and this temperature thing is a little weird because I have my oven set at 320. I think this is the temperature that I liked. And I really watched it and took a lot of notes, checked it every 5 minutes and wrote notes. And it basically started out with really nice small bubbles and started to get a little bit brown, and it got a nice oven spring. And then as it kept going, it just finished really nicely. So you might need to go hotter or lower. I don't have a convection oven. But what's key is after 20 minutes, I am going to open the door to let the moisture out. So that's like opening your vent or whatever. So once the moisture is out, then I'll keep an eye on it, because once you have oven spring and it's been baking and it's like a lot of steam and moisture, then you need to start to dry it out, which sets the structure. The starches begin to set and firm up, and then you get rid of the most moisture, and then it comes out, it cools, you cover it, well, you do it warm, and then you have a cake that's not going to collapse. So that's what's going on. Oh, my hands are sticky. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Okay, well, answer questions and whatever. Okay, so I'll show you. I don't like clutter, that's why I was loath to buy a bundt pan, but this is my favorite bundt pan. I got it for like 10 bucks at a restaurant supply store. I think it's beautiful, but it's like 10 cups. So you can use this and you can adjust the recipe. And also this is an angel food pan. Very similar, very large. That's the center. Cheap, but these are a lot thinner than the one I'm using, and they're a lot thinner than the loaf pan I showed you earlier. Okay, so this is what I would bring this to work and share it with people. So this is my little guy that I love. You can see how beautifully it's made by Motfer. Wow. This, who is this made by? I don't even know. So this is the one I would use at work. So when you buy one that's narrow and tall, has these really lovely lines. This one's really long, and I don't know what brand it is or anything. It's very heavy. This will give you so many slices, and you can either freeze it and then, you know, bring it to room temp and slice it and bag it and do it for like your coffee shop or something, you know, or it just gives you a million options. So I absolutely love these giant pans, but I made a couple of loaves in this aluminum, and I did not love the bottom. They came out way too light. So if I used aluminum again, I would absolutely use a baking stone, because I would want more direct heat going from the baking stone through my guide, because I don't like that bottom, it's too light. And then this was the one that came in this pan. A little bit darker, a little more golden. And I could have gone darker, but I love that. I can feel it. It's really good. I can't smell it because I've wrapped it so well. So the little mini guys are about £1. These are wonderful for gifting, and I wouldn't gift it in here. And if you can find those really cute paper ones, you can gift it in there. But you want to glaze it and then put it back in for bagging. But I like it out of the tin and then maybe bagged in a poly bag or in a box. Okay, so then this is the information for my little duet bundt pan that I bought. And just so you know, these were made in America. You have to hand wash them. That duet pan was $32. It says that, you know, you bake once, but you get 2 different designs, which I also thought was cool. It's cast aluminum, it's non-stick, and it has a coating. So that's bundt. So those are my tools. Let me go put these away. I'm gonna get a cutting board now, because I made them yesterday and I haven't tasted them. I want to answer some of your questions before we do that. Okay. I put it on a dark baking pan for more color. Yeah, that's going to give you more color for sure. Well, if it's too brown and dry and you're doing it because the inside hasn't caught up and isn't baking, then something's off. So now that I know that, I will be putting aluminum on the baking pan. Now that I know this recipe here, I will go ahead and bake this a tiny bit darker, but I'm gonna set you back up over here and we're gonna cut it and look at the crumb. Things just get so out of control so quickly. I mean, just so quickly that it's important to start organized so you end organized. This is the serrated knife that I used last week, and it's from Thermo Hauser, okay? And it's got a point, it's serrated because that's what I use for pastry. But when you put a guard on, you do not put it on and do this. When I was in class, one of my cohorts cut himself, and he did hit like an artery or whatever and bled everywhere. For some reason, he was running around screaming, running around just with blood everywhere. So he did this and he cut himself. So what you want to do is always take this and put it on the counter and then safely put it back in. So you want to do this, move your hand, and then do this. Okay? All right, so I'm going to do this right now. And I'm going to open my knife. We're going to look at the crumb. I'm going to be sharing these cakes, so I want to make sure that I use gloves after I wash my hands so that the people who receive my cakes have confidence that what they're getting is safe and healthy and not covered in whatever illnesses I may have. When your hands are wet, it's hard to get the gloves on. I can't wait to taste this. So again, after you make this and you get the simple syrup on it, you're going to want to wrap them tight and let them sit at room temperature for up to 3 days, but 2 days is a sweet spot. And you don't do that with all cakes, certain cakes. I'll tell you, if you make a chocolate cake or a brownie, I think it's always better the next day. I would never actually eat it that day. It needs to meld. All right, I wrap things really, really well. I did gum paste for years, and it kind of makes you really good at that. Okay, there we go. So there's my cake. It's dark, which I'm so sorry. You can see I glazed it. It has a beautiful crust. Can you see in this light? I'm so sorry. We need daylight saving. Okay. And then this is the large loaf. Let me take it out of the wrapper. And you want to store your cakes at room temperature. If you need to store them long term, you want to put them in the freezer. The refrigerator is just not their friend. So this came out of an aluminum pan and it's way too light. But it was getting dark on top and I didn't want it to get any darker. So out of these two, I think I will open this one. No, I'm gonna open this one. Yeah, this one feels a little like I baked it a little bit longer. Was the long one the 6-cup recipe? I didn't do the giant guy. Oh, this guy? No, 4. And I had leftover. Did I have leftover? I don't remember. No, I think I did not have leftover. That's the thing. You're going, even when like those things say they're 4, they're not. So when you get these recipes, you are going to have to dial them in just a little bit, depending on what pans you have and everything. So if I were going to do this again, I would know exactly. You know, that big pan, we would do banana breads and things like that, and it would always be dialed in. So you have to dial in your recipe, depending on how you like it, how you bake it, you know, and maybe my cake will have more volume than somebody else's because maybe they didn't do as long of a pat bomb or they did a different method. So you're definitely gonna have to decide on your own. Well, it should, I mean, it can have a dome, and it should, and that's kind of called like a swell. This, I may have filled just a little bit too high, and it doesn't have a beautiful split all the way down the middle, but I like it okay. This guy's got a little bit of a dome, but you don't want a giant dome. And again, this is not like, if I did the creaming method, you would get more of a dome and it would look more like a Sara Lee pound cake. So anyway, I think that this has not been dialed in, and it needs to be. Oh, I mean, it's beautiful. I'm gonna actually turn the table. I'm gonna show you this, and then I'll turn and show it to you up close. I'll cut it so you guys can see. because there's not enough light here, and I'm just going to turn it for you and then pull it into the light. So I'll cut all three. Then I'm going to turn so you can see. All right, so we'll start with this guy. This is my big guy. Okay, beautiful color. There's the crumb. And when I look at deciphering what went on in the pan, you can see everything you need to see here. You can see how thick is the crust, how open is the crumb, and then you can tell if it's tight, which it isn't. If you get, some people have like a wet line right there, and that you either didn't develop it enough, it didn't get enough lift, but this is pretty even. Very delicate crumb. And this is the slice. Well, that's the end, so I'm gonna slice one more. And when you use a serrated knife, you wanna go back and forth to preserve this lovely crumb. Okay, I would say I could have gone longer on this. And so it breaks like that. It smells a slight bit eggy, but it smells lemony as well. I actually might like the end on a pound cake. Now I like to take pound cake and throw it in the toaster and then put butter on it. It's nice. You can also do it in the oven, or you can crisp them up and do them in the skillet with butter. So that's one way that I do it. These are lemon pound cake. The lemon is very subtle. And the crumb is nice. This is this other little guy. Got nice bubbles. So we'll see how far I take tonight's. It's got some nice brown bits. I mean, it's hard. I haven't made a pound cake in like a year, and I haven't used it in this oven, and I can't taste them and take days, because I could sit and test these until they're perfect and show you a perfect product, but I would rather you see, you know, the process of what I'm thinking, how I think, because I don't want you just to learn how to do it and expect everything to be perfect. You have to begin to think in response to what's going on in the bowl, in the oven, and in your pan. So it's a very delicate, nice crumb. This is the end piece, but it breaks nicely. So this was the second, and I like the darker parts. That's the second batch I made, and it's better. I mean, that fascinates me. The first one's good, but the second one's way better. And then this guy is that bigger loaf pan, which I don't like how light it is on the bottom, okay? These both should have been put on, look at that. It's practical, it's not raw, but like, that is underdone. And I can tell it got a nice lift because I have bubbles, but there should have been more heat transfer, and this would have been darker. There's not even a crumb around here, a crust, like there is on this guy. This is aluminum pan, this is a nice metal pan. Both should be darker, and I'm gonna take that all into account when I pull these out. They smell slightly eggy, but they're mostly smelling lemony, and I could have put 2 glazes on them. I use a lemon simple syrup that is half lemon juice, half sucrose, but I could use, let's say I have 100 grams of 10X and 25 of lemon juice. So I could make a white powdered sugar glaze, but I just chose to do it's a simple syrup. If you work in a commercial kitchen, oftentimes there'll be a big Cambro full of simple syrup that has kirsch or almond flavor in it. And you will take your day-old croissants, cut them horizontally, dip it into the simple syrup, and then put your frangipan, and then the other top dip, put on top more frangipan, and then you bake it. So what you can do is take a loaf, once it's out of the pan, 10 minutes cooled, and dunk it right into your simple syrup and let it drain on a rack, and then wrap it when it's dry. So now I'll just eat a little bit. And these are delicious. I don't recommend glass for the exact same reason why there wasn't enough heat transfer. glass is an insulator, so it's not going to give me the nice dark bottom. It's just like with a pie crust. I don't use Pyrex, I use metal. I like the bottom to be done, and I also like to use a pizza stone. So if I used aluminum, I'd use a pizza stone, and in here I have aluminum, but it's heavy bottomed, and I'm just gonna bake it longer. I'm gonna take it a lot longer. The crumb is separate from the crust. Let me cut one more piece and I'll show you what I mean. So if I were grading this, I mean, it's a B, it's not even an A. This is the crust. And what you look at for crust is the right ratio. So there isn't enough here. You want it to be a little deeper. There's none on the bottom. So it should be all the way around. And it doesn't mean that you just baked it a long time. You actually want the whole process from beginning to end to be the right temperature, because then you get the right amount of oven spring, you get the right amount of open crumb, and then you get a nice dark exterior. So I think with the pound cake, it's not like roasting a blondie or roasting a pie. You need to get a good oven spring. So if I made this again, we'll see what happens tonight. Would I turn my oven up 5 degrees? I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But the crumb is this. It's the texture of the crumb. So if I did a creaming method, this would be a little more open, but it would give me a more coarse texture in my mouth. Believe it or not, this is it's very fine. You see those teeny tiny little bubbles? That's what the baking powder gives us. And the Patibon builds all these little bubbles. Little bubbles give you the sensation of tenderness because your teeth go through them very easily. So if you refrigerated this, or if you didn't get enough air, it's gonna read as dense. So you definitely need a lot of little air bubbles, and then you need to protect them. So you've got the crumb, you've got the crust, and you can see all of that when you evaluate it. This is fine. This is fine. It looks fine. But I wouldn't eat this up. If it was perfect, I wouldn't be able to stop eating. And I think I would do 2 coats of the simple syrup. So we'll do that on our little bundt guys. I mean, it looks good. It's delicious. All right, so let's see what you guys are talking about. Melly B says, I don't think I understand the meaning of roasting. I'm gonna take you guys with me and I'll get back to that. And we're just gonna look in here real fast, and then I'll open and let the steam out. So the one on the right is popping up a little bit more, and that could have to do with the level that I put in there. It could have to do with the spray that I used. The one on the right is the one that I used, the baking spray, and the one on the left is the one I used, butter and cake flour. Now I'm gonna open it, we're gonna take a look inside. Normally I would just open the door and let the steam out, but we're gonna take a look, and then I'm gonna gently, because this will collapse because of the tiny bubbles, I gently close the door. Okay. It's glossy. There are some little bubbles forming on the top, and I'm gonna very gently close it, and I'm gonna come back in 20 minutes. If I were to use this recipe again, I think I'd go up 5 degrees. So I'm gonna write that down in my notes. Oh, and the one on the right's the one that I piped the butter, so that's interesting. Bundt. Bundt is a funny word because if you write it, no matter what, text it, put it in Word, it spell checks it. It's so annoying. All right, so the one on the right and the one on the left, I have, this one's higher. That's the spray. This is the butter and flour. What else did I say? Maybe raise the temperature. Okay. So roasting is different than just putting a cake in the oven at 350 and baking it till it's done. Cakes are different because they operate very quickly, just like a pound cake. It operates quickly, gets to where it is, then you need to set the structure and you pull it out. And you take care of it in the cooling process. When you roast a cookie or a pie, you're starting out at a hot temperature, 350, because you want to get oven spring. And you want the heat to heat up all the water in the ingredients and create steam like in a pie crust and really get things going. But then you want to develop flavor, you want things to get bubbly, you want to toast the proteins, you want to do something different. You turn the oven temperature down, and it could go as low as 295, 275, something like that, depending on your oven and if you have convection. And then you roast it to color. That way it could take an hour and a half to do a pie that you might normally only bake for 40 minutes, but you are developing flavors in cookies and things that don't exist without doing that. When you make cakes in some ovens, and especially really nice convection ovens that are really airtight, they fill up with moisture. When you are making certain recipes that require a lot of moisture, like even making pâte à choux, you want to let that moisture out of the oven halfway through. That way, everything can start to dry out, because part of your baking is releasing and creating steam, and the other part is drying it out. Those are your kind of two stages. So I opened the oven door to do that. I'm not going to do it now because the other day, because it's a great question. Why am I not going to change the temperature now? Because I'm already in. I've already changed the vessel that I'm baking it in. And until I get a baseline of this new product, I've never used these bundt pans before, I'm not going to change anything else. And with a cake, again, you're not roasting it, you're wanting to get ahead of it. I just don't see changing the temperature in the middle of a cake. Okay, I wouldn't do that. So I don't want to change too many variables. If I don't love this and I get a little bit of this dense, let me get a paper towel here. If this cake, when cut in half, and I'm going to show you these bundt cakes on Sunday, that's why it's fun for you guys to come back. But if these cakes that are in the oven right now look like this, and they're not more like that, then I will up the temperature by 5. So in reality, every single time you begin to bake, you get a new piece of equipment, a new oven, a new pan, a new recipe, or you haven't done this in a long time and you don't have the notes. Unfortunately, you are going to have to test your recipe again. You're going to have to recipe test just a little bit. Somebody asked about adding, can I do a thing on how to get the pan right? I can, but honestly, it's so laborious. There's no one way to do it. You make cake batter, pour it into a pan to the right amount, write down how much it weighs, and then you bake it. And if you don't like it, it's too low or too high, then you alter it next time. It's recipe testing, it's laborious, and it's part of what you do. If you own a business or if you're doing this for fun and you want a signature that you're going to do over and over again, getting consistency and the same results, you're going to take notes, you're going to remember, you're going to take the time. But it's not something you can just do. How do you know when to release some moisture? My recipe says to do it at 20 minutes, so I do it at 20 minutes. That's good. Sean asked, do you recommend making cake flour with AP and cornstarch? No. And I talk a lot about making ingredients in general. I don't want to make ingredients like flour, vanilla extract, brown sugar. I want my stuff to be consistent, and I have too many variables to begin with. So, and then you've added cornstarch, and there's no cornstarch in flour, and cake flour has more starch in it than AP, so you're really throwing off the recipe. If you wanted to do that, you would have to recipe test, and you would have to take the time to answer that question because it's a very complicated question. All right, we have 14 minutes, 7:36. All right, hi. Why does short crust pastry for pies always collapse on the side? Well, that is a great question. Okay, let me go to this one. Starting a roast at 425, then reducing to 350. Is this too high? I think so. I'd go down to 295. Yeah, I mean, and even lower. I mean, the thing is, you need the time. But if you lowered it to 270 and you just added more time, slow, low and slow, you're going to get much better flavor. 350 is high. And do you have an oven thermometer? Is it really 350 or is it really 365? All right, so in a short crust, when you are making a short dough or a pie, or you're making a tart and the sides collapse, there are a couple reasons. One, gluten gets activated every time you touch it. That's why I like to mix it, roll it out, put it in the pan, and then refrigerate it, because then you're only agitating the gluten one time, or in the bowl and then in the pan. When you put your dough into a pie tin, whether it's like rounded or it's square, like a tart shell pan, This corner right here, oftentimes people will push and stretch their dough to get it in there, or they'll leave it so it's like that. And then as it warms up, it kind of falls in here. If you push it and stretch it, and it, again, you think you're gonna make ingredients do what you want them to do, and they're not gonna listen to you. They just don't care what you want. They want what they want, and they do what they do. So if you bully that dough into the corner and you push it, as it relaxes, it's going to do a bunch of things. So then you put it in the oven and it's going to shrink because it wasn't really placed there, it was shoved there. So what you want to do is lift your dough up, and you lift it and you let it fall in there naturally. And once it's all the way in there, then you just gently push around the edges. If you're shoving it in there, you're creating a situation where it's going to pull away and create a gap, and then when it heats up, it's going to slack. That's what happens, and that's what causes the collapsing. So if you think like an ingredient, it's not about making swaps or trying to figure out how to make the recipe different. It's about understanding what's happening inside your pie dough, what happens every time you touch it, what happens when you put it in the pan, what happens when it goes in the fridge or in the oven, and when it cools. So when we look at this cake, we know that moisture is like getting exploded out of it, right? It's going to fill my oven up and to make it moist. We also know that in order to hold up the structure of your cake and those starch molecules, they need to begin to dry out at some point. Have you ever pulled a cake out and left it in the pan or wrapped it in plastic while it was hot and then it like collapsed? That's because the moisture didn't get released, and what appears to be starched products aren't dry yet. When I was teaching, we started out with a muffin. It was a creaming method muffin, and people would put them in the oven and they would say it's done. I would say they're not done, and they would say it's done. I'd say fine, pull them out, because you have to learn, and we used a cheap mix, so it was a good learning tool. And then their muffin would sink, and I would say see, and then they would never do it again, and they would never question it again. That's not to say that every situation's the same. You need to take every recipe. I've made this recipe 20 times. Look at all my notes. And I have more from tonight. So it's not about being there. It's about how are you getting there. And if you enjoy the ride to figuring out a great recipe, you are going to turn it into a signature. You're not just going to jump to another one. If you don't like this recipe the first time you try it, and some of you won't, you'll be looking for something different than I'm looking for, let it go. Do not adjust this recipe. Just get a different one. Rose Levy Berenbaum has a great one, but it's got a more coarse texture and it uses a reverse creaming method. And then there are a ton by very good bakers out there, so many. You decide what style you like, dial it in, dial in your pan, dial in the bake, dial in the cooling, and whatever you cover it with, and then it's a signature. And then you're good to go. But if you change anything, you're gonna have to go back to the drawing board, basically. My glasses, I think I got them at Parker Warby. And again, I've never worn glasses before, but I got progressives, which I had for a year before I used them because I almost fell down the stairs. And anyway, Parker Warby is relatively cheap, and I didn't want a huge investment, and they have tons of cute colors. And I needed sunglasses because when I'm in my car, I need to be able to read the dash and everything. But I hate wearing glasses. I want to get contacts, but I have really dry eyes. What do you think about reverse creaming method? Love it. And if you see my recipes, there is a high ratio cake on my link tree by Toba Garrett. And she does a cake decorating book. And if you are in cake decorating and you are trying to start a business or have one and aren't happy with your cakes, buttercreams, etc., her recipes are to die for. And it is the reverse creaming method, which is a high ratio cake. And the point of that is you have so much fat and so much liquid, your eggs, that it breaks. It doesn't stay emulsified. And high ratio means you have a high ratio of sugar and fat to the flour. And she does a really good job. So I love it. I find it fascinating. I've read a lot about it and I could talk about it all day. Love it. I had leftover batter, so I put 2 in mini loaves. Perfect. I don't know how much it'll take. You'll have to like keep track of it. And your oven's different than my oven. All our ovens are different. I literally wrote, I don't know if you can see this, 5-minute increments and then the results. So at 5 minutes, it's getting taller, browning, I've got bubbles. Check at 5 minutes, after the initial 20. Holding structure, it's getting a little golden. It's getting darker, still wet. Starting to smell, I could smell the lemon smell. It's getting a little drier, not as shiny. Touched it and it did not bounce back, which is not a sign of doneness. With cakes, if you touch it, it should spring back relatively quick, and so on and so forth. So tonight's bake's gonna be a little bit different. Why don't we go look at it? So I have 7 minutes. All right, I'm gonna open it for you, so pay attention because I'm gonna do it fast. Starting to look nice. The one on the right's getting a little bit brown. And again, I find this process to be fascinating. To me, this is recipe development, this is recipe testing, and I find nothing boring about it. I could do it all day. I could take notes and pay attention. If I were bringing this pound cake, or having to do it for a test, or for a job interview, or I was bringing it to your home for a dessert, I would probably do, in the pan of my choice, I would test it I'd test it till it was good. I would betcha, if I did the loaf pan, I could get it in one more bake. If I do the bundt, I might need 2. Or maybe I switch to the Big 10 cup. So every time I switch a variable, I'm testing. That is recipe development, and that means you're going to have patience, and you can't just change course in the middle. If you decide you're going to do this method with this recipe and this pan at this temperature, you need to commit, observe the results, take notes, and then do it differently next time without changing too many things. The one on the right is higher, and so it could be that I used the spray, which means that the batter was able to go up faster, didn't cling quite as much. I mean, there are recipes where you don't use spray because you need, like with meringue cakes, you need it to grab onto the side of the pan. And if you use grease, it wouldn't be able to do that. It wouldn't be able to lift. Like a souffle, you need to use sugar so that it can do that. It needs to have something to grab onto and not just grease. You can also take pictures every 5 minutes and keep them in your notes. Absolutely. And you can use Canva or your notes app to do that and then make a lovely file. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's exactly what I love to do. And again, I'm doing this for you guys. We're having fun. I feel like I'm going to do it a couple more times for Sunday, so I have some good answers for you. Olivia asked if I use an internal temp, and I do sometimes, and I think this one needs to go, let me see. It needs to go to 210 or something like that. Yes, I mean, I think it needs to be cooked to 210 Fahrenheit, but I can't find the note. Oh, here it is. 210 internal temp. I don't want to use thermometers for anything I'm familiar with or going to be doing a lot. I want to look for signs of doneness. Maybe, well, if I'm doing just a cake, just a high ratio cake, because I ran a cake decorating business and I made them myself, the cakes, I mean, I can tell just by looking. You get good. With the pound cake, if you did it enough, you would get good. I make Stollen once a year, and I use the thermometer, absolutely. I know how to pick it up and thump it, and I think it's ready, but I like a thermometer. And you want to use an instant read that's very thin, so you're not leaving a big hole. And then for pound cake, they do recommend if you want to use a cake tester with it, which is very skinny, or a nice long toothpicky thing, which is nice. I do believe in rotating the pans. I'm going to leave it where it is. If you have just so you know, if you have a convection oven, the fan can be so powerful. You do need to watch your oven so that you don't get a slant. You have to dial in your oven, and sometimes we knew the air was here and there, and you'd see everything was this way. I'm going to go take a look at it and see. I'm not going to rotate them. This oven is pretty even, but a lot of ovens have hot spots, and you're going to have to dial in your oven as well. I've gone to places where there have been signs on the oven where it's like defunct, it doesn't work, don't use it, and I'm like, whatever. So I would put in, let's say it was like for a convection where you put the whole rack of a rack oven. And I would put a thermometer here in the middle at the bottom. And sometimes you'd have to weight those things with like iron pans to get them to hang right, because they'd clunk as they went around. I mean, you have to dial in an oven, even professional ovens. And a lot of places, as the ovens start to go, they really start to get persnickety, and it's like, you just need to know your oven very well. And then you avoid those spots, or certain products don't go there. This oven, I don't own it. It's propane, but it's pretty even. I could swap it, but I don't feel like I need to right now. What do you pay attention to when testing a new recipe pan temperature? Real quick, would you use parchment for the loaf pans? Yes. You don't have to, but you can. And I recommend just the bottom. You want the edges to become golden. Parchment isn't really an insulator, but it does get in the way a little bit of the browning. I like the butter because remember, butter is a releasing agent and a browning agent. So I don't like parchment, and these slid right out of the pan. You'll see these will slide right out. So that is up to you, and you can test it. So testing a recipe comes down to defining what you're looking for, the desired outcome, converting everything to grams. I use the Baker's Appendix by Jessica Reed, and I also have my own list of ingredient conversions. But if you're going to do that, stick to one resource. I think I'm getting tired. My brain's like, shh. If you use more than one resource, then you're getting and introducing variability. So then I put it into my magic spreadsheet formulator in the order that it's going to go, and then I begin. And I don't change anything the first time I make it. And I try to do it true to what the recipe developer said. Just follow it. And if it's really weird, then I probably am not even going to use the recipe. I'm going to say, why are they doing this? Why is this in here? And then I'll probably avoid it altogether. After I do that, I do the whole thing, and then next time I'll change one thing. So for this guy, I think I'm going to make it go up 5 degrees. And other than that, I like it. I think I need to dial in how much I fill up my pan. But let me go take a look. I'm going to do 5 minutes. Now, if I were alone, I would be taking notes. They still look glossy, and I want them to be dried out. The glossy is going to tell me that if I take them out now, they're not done. And what I was concerned about is I wanted a really tender, soft, lovely interior. I wanted it to be light, and I didn't want the dark to be too dark, but now I'm going to go ahead and let it get dark. Oh, they're so sticky. I thought they were egg whites. This is my lemon simple syrup. It's quite viscous, which I like. You can see bits of lemon pieces in there because it's fresh squeezed lemon juice. And I'll tell you, somebody, one of the viewers, Tamesh16 said, why don't you use some bitters? I was like, that's a great idea. Here we go. So I don't know if you guys have seen me talk about bitters, and I don't get paid for anything. I don't have any brand partnerships or anything. I just tell you what I like, and when I like something, I am sincerely in like. So I've been using bitters, and if you're not familiar with bitters, I believe the name is a little misleading. This bitter cube is a Milwaukee company, and I don't know if you know, I raised my kids in Milwaukee and I love it. Bitters are really just very concentrated flavors, and they tend to be complex and bitter. They're not sweet because there's no sugar in here. You can't drink a bitter, and it does have alcohol in it, but you use so little that they come in droppers. And I'm a convert for literally for baking. Like these go in chantilly cream. You could add them to cookies. They add very little moisture and lots of flavor. So they're called things like cherry bark vanilla, bolivar, Jamaican number 2, blackstrap, Jamaican number 1. That doesn't mean anything to me, okay? So what I did is I wrote the flavor profile next to the bottle. And for this lemon simple syrup, really lemony, I was like, okay, well, there's 2 flavors. Grapefruit hibiscus island happens to be what they call blackstrap. Now, I would never pick blackstrap, but I like the grapefruit hibiscus and island is going to go with the lemon. I really like that. And I take this and put it on soda water, so I'm not drinking soda. Boom, boom on my ice, and then I put the soda water on it. I've been baking with them, and I just match the flavor profile to whatever I'm making. So then these bottles are just a little bit bigger. And this flavor profile for the Trinity is citrus, dried fruit, and vanilla. So I picked this guy because I talked to my friend Tamesh16, and we both decided we do the grapefruit, hibiscus, and island. And I don't know how much I should use. It smells good. But what I'm gonna do is do one of the bundt cakes with this and the other with this, and then I can do a flavor comparison. So you're always eliminating things before you make decisions. And if I just did both of them, I wouldn't be able to test. So I'm excited because my simple syrup is going to get a little bit of a refresh. It's going to be kind of modern and exciting. The trick to fluffy cookies is adding a lot of air, most likely the creaming method, and getting a lot of air in there. Bitters is a flavor additive. Mother's a genius. Thank you, because honestly, I think I am. I've added it to granola, cookies, chantilly cream. You can add it to cake batter. You need to add it at the right stage, whatever you're making. But you can droplet, so you can count and take notes and write down that you added 5 drops. You can add 10 drops. And that's what I'm going to do tonight. And when you flavor pair it, it's like you're bumping up the base. I mean, lemon's good, great. Lemon's great. But have you ever had like a rum cake? Like they're to die for. The kind that they have down in like the islands where they're almost wet. They're so good. So I think this is going to add like a sophistication. And again, if you're running a business out there and you want something a little different and you put out pound cake for the day, everyone's going to want the pound cake. But how cool if you put out, you know, black strap pound cake, lemon pound cake. So this is smoky, full-bodied, and warm. Cola nut, black cardamom, nutmeg, and cinnamon. Lovely. It's going to be great. So I love drinking this one. It's the one I use the most. And I like putting it even in, I mean, you can add it to anything, even hot water or tea. But I've been baking and cooking with it, which is insane. All right, you guys want to come with me? Flip your camera, flip your camera. The worst alarm. All right, so let's look. They're not done, I can tell, because they're still shiny, but the edges are getting very dark, and I should not keep opening it, but I do for you. I do for you. I'm gonna do 5 more minutes. So this stage of my life, I bake what I'm interested in, and I bake so that I can learn. So all I ever do is just test. And I'm not changing a ton, I'm dialing it in because I want best practices. Angostura, I don't know if I say that right, but bitters are so good. If you ever have a tummy ache, a little seltzer or soda water and some bitters, and your tummy will sort of bubble up and feel a little bit better. Yeah, orange would taste good too. Well, that's why I was on the fence about doing the citrus dried fruit and vanilla. Darn, now you've got me, but I'm gonna stick with the first choice. But, oh, and this has a little, yep, you can shake it so you get the same thing. So you do like a couple shakes. And they're just beautiful. And I got the sample pack. I was always looking for a reason, but I can recall being like, you know, I don't want to buy bitters or spend the money because I don't want to waste it because I'm not going to use it a million different, I'm not a mixologist, a million cocktails. But then I was like, it's concentrated flavor. And if you know anything about how they make it, they literally take real ingredients, like crazy good ingredients, and then they distill it down. So this one is a vanilla citrus dried fruit and charred oak. Gosh. So imagine that you have a coffee shop, you put out a lemon pound cake, but you call it the Trinity lemon pound cake, and it says that it's got, you know, notes of vanilla, dried citrus, and charred oak in your pound cake. I just think it's genius. If any of you are cake decorators, you can do that. And I would like to say real quick, if anyone out there is syruping their high ratio cakes, please stop. It isn't the appropriate application of a syrup, and you're ruining your cakes. The syrup is meant for sponge cakes and things that need that extra moisture because it's not in the ingredient. It doesn't have the fat or it doesn't have something. Bitters with a cardamom would be so good in banana loaf. Oh my gosh, totally. Yeah, they're so good in seltzer water. You almost feel like you're being good to yourself. Now, what do I do with all the test bakes? Well, these I will repurpose and share with neighbors and things like that. Send them to work with my husband. And sometimes I'll freeze things so that I have them later. Like a pound cake is something that if I freeze these, I wrap them and freeze them, then I can use them whenever. I tend to only keep things in the freezer for 3 months or less for quality. But if I leave them in the freezer, I can pull them out and then do a video demoing plated things or alternative uses. So I repurpose and eat and share everything. I tried to make Julia Child sponge cake. The batter was delicious, but the cake tasted terrible. Well, that can happen. And I tell people, if it didn't work out, get rid of it. Don't do it again. Don't try to figure it out. Don't recipe test it. It's like a book. Have you ever, I don't know if you're the type that when you're reading a book, after one chapter, do you let it go and you don't like it? Or do you keep, I'll read it till I'm done. I will never not finish a book. And I hate that about myself. But with a recipe, if it's not good the first time, it's out. It did not earn its keep. Everything has to earn its keep. And I love Julia Childs and everything, but not every recipe is going to be good. And I never assume any recipe is going to be good. If you start making a bunch of pound cakes to compare, do Rose Levy's, do Claire Saffit's, do a couple different ones, and then do this again, then you're starting to gain some knowledge. If you just go online or you read an article about pound cakes in magazines, those people did what I'm doing, and they're internalizing the information and learning. So it's really not learning when you read other people's experiments and their results. It's learning when you do it and you guess and then you get an outcome. Because that pound cake or the cake that you just spoke of, Julia Child's sponge cake, if it wasn't good, you internalize that information. And when you make another one and it turns out to taste good, you somehow in your physical body intuitively know why it's better. And that's what's fascinating about baking. A high ratio cake is like an American butter cake, sweet, soft. It's like a cake mix. High fat and sugar relative and moisture relative to the flour. All right, let's see. We'll bring this over here. You can tell the crust is getting very dark, but I'm gonna keep going to experiment with the darker bake because I think I'm gonna get a nice 5 more minutes, because last time I pulled them out and this is what I got. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep going until I'm uncomfortable with the bake. It's gonna be dark. And again, if I'm not happy with this, I'm going to adjust the recipe so that I don't have leftover batter, and I'm gonna go ahead and make my little bundt cakes again, and maybe twice before Sunday. So when you come back here on Sunday, you'll have more information from me. You'll have information from you. Hi, everybody. I got a violation for talking about the book and what I would do if I had to read it all. Remember what I said? So I need to watch what I say. So this is what it looks like. I just pulled it out of the oven. It's nice and dark, and I'm going to let it sit. It's already pulling away from the edges a little, but I'm gonna let it sit for a minute and cool, and then I'm gonna glaze it so you guys can see me do that. I'm so sorry. I need to watch what I say and figure things out. I'm gonna make a glazing tray. This is my glazing tray. So I'm gonna take my cake out, I'm gonna put it on here, and then I'm gonna glaze it when it's still hot. Oh boy. Drama, drama, ding dong. The cakes are out of the oven. I'm gonna glaze them in a minute and then we'll wrap it up. So if you guys have any more questions, they're looking really, really nice. I need to be able to handle them. They should not be screaming hot, but they should be warm. I appealed it right away and whatever, and they reinstated me right away. So thank gosh. I need to watch what I say. Thank you. I mean, I had to wear the green. It's the month of the Irish. I found out through my DNA that I'm part Irish. It's a Nordic ware duet bundt pan so that I can do 2 cakes at once with 2 different designs. And I have this long skinny rack so I can turn them out. But then I'm going to use this smaller guy to glaze them. And I have a simple syrup and a brush, and I'm going to glaze them, and then we're going to wrap it up until Sunday. I put the butter on top so that it would split. It creates the ability for it to split, but it didn't really. I think my oven needs to go a little bit hotter, and I kind of knew that. So if you have a convection oven, 325 is perfect, but I think I'm gonna go up next time. I need to get more oven rise and more of a dome. And this one has more dome than my guys I did earlier. Do you ever make this as a vanilla recipe? I love lemon, but I'm curious. Absolutely, you can make it as a vanilla. You can change the flavor any way you want. just be aware that as you add flavor that you're not changing the moisture content. So you could add vanilla bean seeds from a pod, which are dry, or vanilla bean paste. But you'll have to decide how much you need to make it really good and pronounced. So I think a layering of the vanilla bean paste and vanilla bean seeds would be really, really nice. So we're making lemon pound cake. I like vanilla pound cake. I like plain, but I like vanilla too. These are the guys we just made. And then we are going to I'm going to put them here on glazing racks. There we go. I'm going to get gloves, and I have a lemon simple syrup and my blackstrap bitters. I'm going to do one in the lemon and one in the bitters altered flavor. So my pastry brush. I think this pastry brush is a little wide, so I'm going to look for one a little smaller. This one's a little bit smaller. I'm going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to flip this out. Very dark. It's a very dark bake. We'll have to see what it looks like on the inside. You know, I'm not going to cut it today because, they're too dark. But that's okay. We'll see what the inside looks like. I'm not going to cut them today because I'm going to leave them until Sunday, actually. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to cut them on video. I really like the design. I think it's very, very pretty. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely charming. So cute. So now that they're warm, I could either take simple syrup in a container and just dunk the whole thing. That's the easiest. But what I'm going to do is take it and, let's see. So this was the one I used the spray on, and this was the one I used the butter and flour. All right, so here I go. I'm going to do this guy plain. And I'm going to do a even, thorough coating. Make sure I don't miss anything. But I want it to soak in. It's going to do that better on a warm cake. To fill in all the holes so it gets soaked in. And it's going to get glossy and a little crusty. And if I wanted to, you guys have seen me do the 10X and lemon juice and stuff and cream. It just is so beautiful. I do that on my lemon poppy seed. So this is a lemon pound cake. I baked it really, really dark. I think next time I'm going to go up on the temperature but shorten the baking time. That way I'll get more oven spring, a nice dome, but also I will get less dark on the outside and more baked all the way through earlier on. I just want to make sure that I'm getting every bit, and I am going to wrap this nice and tight, but I really want this to soak in, and it looks so pretty. Glistening, look at that. A little more. All right. So then I'm going to add the bitters. Oh, you know what? I wish you guys could see it because you can see the spices. I'm going to get a spoon to see if I'm adding enough flavor. Huge difference. I'm going to add a little more. Lovely. This is my favorite one. If I had to buy a big bottle of one flavor, I'd buy the blackstrap. I love it. Just it's the most refreshing and wonderful. Okay, so now I'm going to do this little guy. And then when they are 100% cool, not warm at all, not enough to cause condensation, when they are 100% cool, I'm going to wrap them tight. I'm going to let them sit for 2 days. And I'm going to cut them open, and I'm going to test them. And between now and Sunday, I think I'm going to make this a couple more times so that I can dial in the bake, so that I can give you updates on Sunday which will be fun. So if you can't make Wednesdays or you have to leave early, please just know that it's okay. You can always catch up on YouTube, and on Sunday you can come back, and even if you didn't have time to bake, you can ask questions, you can learn from other people, and I would like to hear how this goes in your kitchen, and we can all learn from each other. Just remember to follow some of the tenets. Do it as it's written, take notes, and you should have no problems. There you go. Absolutely beautiful. A little dark, but that's okay. And maybe I'll dunk one. Maybe I'll make a simple syrup where I dunk it. So this is awesome. I can use this in my tea in the morning. It's lovely and wonderful. So a little dark. But I love the pan. Love the pan. If I had had a hotter temperature, I would have gotten more lift, more upness, which would be nice, and I wouldn't have had to bake the outside as dark. But I think the inside's going to be good, and then let's see if you can see. You can kind of see some of the brown specks. Those are literally from the bitters. Isn't that wonderful? So we've endured a shutdown. We've survived. We've persevered. We've glazed our cakes. I'm going to wrap them when they're cool. They're going to sit on my countertop at room temp, cooling. And if I want to glaze them again, I can. And I could also even add the 10x glaze to the top for beauty, or just powdered sugar or donut sugar, you know, sucrage, so it doesn't dissolve. But they are darling. I love the pan. I just need to dial in the bake. So a lot of this is like you guys watching me learn in real time. I was doing increments of 5, and the last one I did 4. And again, I think I went over, but it's not the color of the crust that's the problem. It's that I needed to have it hotter from the very beginning. That would have gotten me a lot more lift, a nicer dome, probably a crack around the top, and then I could have stopped when the exterior was the right color of brown versus going too far. This guy was baked in the spray, and I did that because I felt like these really sharp corners might get stuck, and this guy was the butter flour. So I love the spray. It's easy. You know, some people don't like it because of the chemicals that are in it. I'm talking all over the food. The chemicals that are in it, but and it got a little bit higher than this one. And I think that's because it had better release from the sides of the pan. So my process for recording notes for my recipe is I print out. I'm constantly tweaking that spreadsheet that's on the link tree. So I'll just print it out. For this recipe, I had this much leftover batter. So I'm probably going to weigh this real quick and subtract it, reconfigure the recipe, print it out, and then dial it in for my bundt pan. So on Sunday, I'll be able to give you a dialed in instruction for these little bundt guys if you want to buy them. I bought it from Nordic Ware, and I ordered it on Amazon only because I needed to get it for this demo. So I ordered it for overnight. But I would say this is a win, and I do not ever buy extra pans. My pans have to do a million things, but I think these are adorable. Once I dial in how much it weighs and how much fits, I can do my lemon poppy seed in here and all kinds of other things. So I think it's gorge. Absolutely beautiful. And I love that there's 2. I am fascinated. They have like an anniversary one that's really beautiful that I love. You can put the glaze, the 10x glaze you can do in place of the simple syrup right now. And that'd be great while it's warm, using the just mixed powdered sugar and water or lemon juice or whatever you want. But if you want to make like a white glaze with, you know, I make it with cream or milk and vanilla. You know, if you go back and look at some of my videos, it's the lemon poppy seed. It's very pretty, and I pipe it on. I wouldn't do that till I'm ready to serve it. But that's not preserving anything. That's not moistening it. I mean, it does a tiny bit, but it's more decorative and a sweet. This is preserving the crumb. It's filling in the holes. It's preserving moisture, adding flavor. It's doing a lot of things. So you can do a thin glaze now with powdered sugar. You can do the simple syrup glaze now, or you could wait to add more of the powdered sugar, pretty white glaze over the top to make it look all pretty, because I love drizzling and doing all that. Yeah, the Q&A is great. And that's where, I mean, once I get the demo done, we are on to like question and answer. I can go on for days. And if you have questions about other recipes or whatever, I plan to do French macaron after I've worked out some of the bugs. It's more technical, more time consuming, and I need to make sure that I'm able to present it in a way that works. Because I'm going to do an Italian meringue, and I need you to age the egg whites and the TPT and do some other stuff. So I'm not only, this is only the third week I've done this baking club, and it's completely different than what I've been doing, which is to just do a recipe, video it, make a video, and then move on to the next recipe. This is like working with you guys to pick the recipe, and then I have to become an expert at it, bake it, get it all ready for Wednesdays, and then analyze, and then, so it's more teaching, and which is great, but a macaron is the reason they're so special is because they're very nuanced. And I want to make sure I can do that in a way where you guys aren't tuning out because I'm too into it. You know what I mean? So I'm keeping it somewhat light, somewhat short, so that we can figure this space out together. I am wrapping these cakes. I will wrap these cakes as soon as they are 100% cool. And what I'm going to do is feel underneath. I can still feel warmth and I don't even need to touch it. They need to be 100% cool, but you need to find that edge where they're 100% cool, but they aren't drying out, and then wrap them tight. And then they're going to sit on the countertop for 2 days, and then I'm going to wrap up the pound cakes behind me, wrap them up, and I'm going to test them tomorrow, and then I'm going to test them on the third day, and I'm going to take notes. So by Sunday, I should be able to tell you lemon pound cake is best, you know, at this temp. This is what the crumb should look like. This is what the crust should look like. I think 2 days is a sweet spot, you know, blah, 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 blah. And if any of you do alter one thing, you want to do vanilla, you know, let me know. Maltitol and sugar-free baking. I taught a recipe development class, the last school I worked at. And we always said sugar-free days were the hardest. Of vegan, gluten-free, of many, many types of baking, sugar-free is by far the hardest, and many of those swaps upset the tummy. So I like it. I think that especially the kind that you can get from the store that are swaps for sucrose, for sugar, for baking. But I would only go sugar-free if someone has a problem with sugar. That, you know, a lot of really, my students would have to pick one type of recipe to develop. And the ones working on sugar-free were doing it for family members, which is so lovely. So sugar is one of the more complex things to replace. And, you know, I mean, that's why it took decades of manufacturing food for them to come out with low sugar stuff. It just took forever. Need your opinion on sourdough. I've been trying for months and can't get it right. Kylie. Well, I highly recommend the Tartine book. Tartine bread, I do the country loaf, and I cut it in half if need be. I use the combo cooker from Lodge, and a couple things. I have a bunch of videos from how to do the starter. I fed the starter every single day. You know, very in depth. Some of them are very short, but it gives you the point that you need to do these things every day. Do not put your sourdough starter in the refrigerator, even if you're going out of town. I have videos for how to do that. You know, you pre-scale everything and someone just puts the ingredients together because they need to be the right balance of bacteria and yeast. And so if you put it in the fridge, the yeast slow down and your bacteria takes over. And you can revive it, but that is not ideal. So you need to keep doing it. For the real, this is what I would use to teach bread in class. Jeffrey Hamelman's book is amazing. But Tartine has a country loaf. And the starter, it does use whole wheat flour, which I like. But go through here and write down the method. Get your starter going really well. And do this one. Again, it's always about finding one good recipe and then sticking with it. So I don't know all your details, but those would be kind of my suggestions to you. In here, I have mostly my bread books. And in the other room, I have everything from cake decorating to variety baking books to all-purpose and, you know, things like that. But these are like my bread books. I will be doing the macaron as soon as I can. I think I'm going to get my sea legs on this whole thing in the next month or so. I would say this is my 3rd week, and I'm still finding glitches. Too many glitches for me to live with. So, you know, I would say in the next month or so, and we will put it on the poll. So on Sunday, if you come back, you'll get to vote on what we do next week. So that's one benefit of being here. And I'll usually do it toward the end. And I hope to keep it to 2 hours on Sunday. But you know what? Why don't you start with watching my videos? It sounds like I'm trying to sell you something, but I spent a lot of time on those videos. Nothing's changed about it. And I can take you through the whole process. And I talk a lot about the nuances of yeast, the nuances of, again, you know, I see people throwing ice cubes in when they make the bread. It's like the moisture's in the bread. You don't need an ice cube. I don't know what you're doing when you've enclosed with a very hot pot, raw dough that's at a hydration of, I don't even know what it is. I don't know what the hydration is. I forget. Let's say it's 80%. The moisture lives in the dough. That's going to make it great. You don't need parchment. You know, so watch the videos and see if that helps. And then keep digging deeper and it'll get better. Just keep going. You should be afraid, Jenna, of macarons. Macarons are very technical and I've made thousands of them and they're still scary. Maybe I'm just scared to teach it. I don't know. Yes, steaming the crust helps make it chewier, but you don't need to steam it. You don't need to add ice. It's going to steam. Tartine has you put the combo cooker in the oven and get hot. You have the big one and the little one. And then you pull that out, you put the bread in there and the lid on it. That mimics an injection steam oven, deck oven for bread, okay? And that's gonna release the steam that's gonna make your bread non-stick, it's gonna pop off, and it's going to allow full expansion. Then you're gonna pull that lid off and let the steam out, and then it's gonna crust up. So you don't need to add ice or anything. You just need to trust the process. The bread knows what to do. You don't need to outthink it and throw ice cubes in it or whatever the heck people are doing that I see online. You know what? Baking does seem easy. And that's why I'm here to give you, first of all, I'm here to give you the truth. I've been trying to watch more videos for you guys. And people are basically like, hey, whatever you do, it's fun. If you make a mistake, that's okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, if you make a mistake, but you should learn from it. And sometimes it doesn't taste good. So you don't want to make mistakes just because it's fun and you're not. You want to build systems that are really easy to lean into. And then from there, with consistency and practice, you'll get better. And then that day, listen, if I were to make bread right now, it would not be perfect. It would be good. Just like I said, these cakes are a C. Actually a D. This is a fail. I mean, they're going to taste good, but if a student turned this in, I would say we can't sell it. It's unsellable. Can't sell it. I can't sell that. So what you're looking for is within the parameters of would someone pay for it, basically is the guideline. So just keep doing it. And if I did this, I would have these pound cakes so that within a week, I would be able to make 100 of them and sell them. I could bag them and sell them. They'd be beautiful. They'd be in a pretty cello bag with a beautiful ribbon and a label. And yeah, right now they're not there. But that, for me, that's the joy of it, because when I get there, I'm like, yeah, I got there. And I got there using respect for the ingredients, thinking about what they're doing and responding to what they're doing. And it's really great. You don't need to use ice or parchment. Trust me. You just don't. These things have been told to the home baker because they're trying to second guess you. These suggestions are literally meant because they don't trust you to be able to synthesize the information. And I'm saying, if you know the moisture lives in the dough, and if you know your pan is hot enough and it's trapping the moisture, creating moisture at the right temperature, you need bread ovens are screaming hot, like 500 degrees, 450 to 500 degrees. And when you throw that bread in there, it goes shh, and it hits the bottom of the oven, and then you steam inject it right away, and then 3 to 5 minutes later, that steam is like, if you had your hand in there, it would burn you. And it covers the bread so that the bread does not crust up, and that delays it so that it can expand. And then it dries out and you get your lovely golden crust. So you need to develop that dough to the point where when you tighten it, and I watch people round out dough, they're not doing it right. So, you know, if you think you're creating tension and you think you're rounding it right and you lift it up and it falls apart, you didn't. So if you understand every stage, and I feel like a lot of my videos sort of give you those examples, and you'll see even through those videos where I get better. So trust the dough. People have been making bread for a long time, and the dough knows what it's doing. Just let the dough. What if I made the butter to put on the cake to make the seam? What if after I pull it out of the microwave, I just threw an ice cube in there to cool it down? Wouldn't you be like, oh, aren't you introducing water? Yeah. So why are people throwing ice cubes in brown butter? You just spent 20 minutes removing the water. Why are you putting an ice cube in there? So anyway, these are things that you need to think about. They're just rules of how you do it. And professional bakers don't not do it because, I don't even know. They just don't do it because it's not what you do. So the ingredients don't like it. So you can't make the ingredients do what you want to do. You have to do what they want to do. And once you learn the truth, rather than trying to outthink everything, because you're just adding variables, rather than try to outthink everything, understand what lives inside your bread, your cake, your cookie, your meringue, your macaron, what lives inside there, and then control what you're doing to it, respect what's happening, observe, and respond. And that's basically all I'm offering you guys, is the ability to think like a professional does, because we don't know any more than you do. You don't need to read an article about how to bake bread. You need to understand what's in the bread, what each ingredient is, what lives inside that ingredient, meaning, you know, flour has all these things in it. Whole wheat flour has different things, and so on and so forth. So how are they responding to each other? If you're autolyseing and you put your flour and water into a bowl and you mix it up and let it sit for 30 minutes, you don't add salt to it. Why is that? As soon as you understand why, everything else about the salt's going to make sense. So when you start to understand hydration in breads and why people call it an 83% rye, or why we say these things, then you'll know that throwing an ice cube in or using parchment to get it to release it's a fear-based decision. So just understand and then respond. Oh my gosh, an ice cube in brown butter sounds wrong. Was that a random example? No, and I will be honest, I have been actually finding the source of some of these rumors. It's very disappointing. They are things that professionals think they're helping home bakers and home cooks. And they're disingenuous. They're not helpful. So I'm trying to get people to understand what brown butter is. And also, you know, I weighed an ice cube. They weigh between 11 grams and 20 grams. And that's a lot of water. And you wouldn't just throw a tablespoon of water in something. So just think about it that way. It'll all make sense the more you do it. If you don't get the crinkly top on brownies, you don't have enough sugar in your formula. And I have a brownie extravaganza on my playlist that you should go watch, because I explain a lot. That was my goal. I have a lot of videos I've done. All of the information remains true. Baking doesn't change. So anything that I've done, if you have questions, go back and look. Thank you. I would love to write a book. And I have so many notes that you guys have sort of made me realize that I need to get them in a better system. So I've been doing that. And before I give these lives, I can give you ingredient function, you know, in a way that's a little more organized. So you guys have really been a motivator for me. I'm on Substack if you're interested. If you made a cinnamon roll that were too dry, I would say the recipe is not for you. Look for another one. And I would try maybe a King Arthur recipe and make sure that you're not cooling it too long and letting it dry out and all that kind of thing. But if it's not a good recipe, don't use it. All right, I'm gonna wrap these up in front of you and then we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you. I had to wear this for this is a kid's headband, but it matched an adult. And these were both like so cheap on sale from J. Crew. And I was like, I wanna do this I always wear green in March because it's fun and it's St. Patty's Day. But thank you. It's a little obnoxious when an older lady wears childlike clothing, but on the other hand, who cares? I'm a baker. I spend my days doing super fun stuff. So I actually don't even really care. All right, I'm gonna wash my hands and then I'm gonna wrap this up. So I'm here on Wednesdays doing a new recipe that you guys choose every Wednesday live. And then I put a edited version of this video onto YouTube where you can rewatch it at your own leisure. And then on Sundays I come back and you guys have either made it or you have more questions or we talk about other stuff. So Wednesdays and Sundays, the chart that I just showed you lives on Substack and I have a blog and I'm going to be writing a lot more there. I'm just getting into the swing of it. This has been so all time consuming. So I'm on YouTube, I'm here on TikTok doing lives and I'm just, I'm trying to give you guys an actual demonstration, lecture, go do it yourself, discuss, just like professional baking classes are. This is exactly what I did when I had a real class in real life. I'm not a Virgo, and I did a video on that because everyone thinks I am, and I looked it up out of like a food magazine, and it's hilarious. So I did a video under like personal stuff, or I don't know if it's under my opinion or what, but I'm a Scorpio, but with these Virgo tendencies, so go figure. But when I was a kid, my mom used to pay me to organize the junk drawer, and I'm very organized just by nature. I'm not obsessive, I just like systems that make my life easier. And you can tell if I make a lot of mistakes because I'm goofing around, it's not good. So this is kind of warm, it's just a little bit warm. So I could let it go a little bit longer. And in fact, I'm going to demonstrate best practices and I'm going to take it out. So it's too warm, and if it is, it's going to get soggy and I'm not going to like it. So I'm going to take it out and let it dry a little bit longer, and then I will wrap it later. So that's it, you guys. I'm going to go. It takes me forever to edit these videos when they get really, really long. Oh my gosh. Okay. Our Lady of Choco, Kathleen, I keep thinking leaving the recordings unedited. They're painful, okay? It's painful. And it would be, what are you going to, 2.5 hour? All right, but here's what I'm going to do. What I do is I take out the ums and the ahs, and that's, you know, like I try to make it, and that might even be annoying. I don't know. So I'm just going to take out the unrelated parts, and I am going to try to get this edited in, I think it took me like 2 days the first week, and the second week it took me a day, on and off hours, and so this time I'm hoping to do it less than 2. And then maybe I can get it down to 1. So I'm working on making this as efficient as possible. As soon as I can dial it in, and this is how I work with my baking, as soon as I dial it in, then I can move on to doing more stuff. You are welcome. You have a fantastic week too. Thank you. I'm sorry I got us cut off and banned. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I will see you Sunday. If you have any questions, you can always come into the comments or DM me. And that's it. Have a wonderful evening. Happy baking. I'll see you on Sunday. Oh my gosh, I have made milk bread and I learned how to make it from a really great restaurant. I mean, there's so much we could do. We just need more time. I'm not going to forget any of your comments because I go through and read through all of them and hopefully can answer them all on Sunday. So thank you. I know, wouldn't milk bread be fun? It's so delicious and soft. And I was thinking about bread. It's really hard to do it in this format, but I might be able to figure it out. So, all right. Well, thank you guys. Either M. Kathleen Meisinger or The Practice of Pastry across the board, and you can Google me and you'll find me. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.